This is Duke University.
So Christine Lin is a stage and screen actress, sometimes moonlighting as an engineering consultant. She began acting professionally in Chicago in storefront theaters and internal corporate videos called industrials. Then Christine landed a part in a new play by David Henry Hwang called Chinglish, which went to Broadway. In New York, Christine began acting in television and film. Her first credit was on Gossip Girl as Clipboard Lady. Other credits include TV shows like The Blacklist, Roar, and American Horror Story. Christine has appeared in numerous commercials for Apple, US Bank, and H&R Block, and does voiceover work from animated roles in the film Abnormable and HBO Max series Bugs Bunny Builders to English, dubbing for foreign TV shows. You can see Christine recurring on the tween series Surfside Girls, now on Apple TV, and in upcoming comedy films starring Aquafina and Sandra Oh, where Christine will be playing their mom in flashbacks. Christine earned her BSE from Duke. She double majored in electrical and biomedical engineering with a minor in religion. Christine now lives in Los Angeles with her husband and two young daughters and cat Roxy. We're so grateful that Christine is here. I'll just jump right into it. I was curious to know, what does a day-to-day look like with your job?
Well, I have two young kids, so the first thing is just getting them to school or to their daycare. And then I usually take some time to just do some of my own like admin stuff. Like I do, have you guys heard of Morning Pages by The Artist's Way? It's basically like free writing. Yeah, like 10, 15 minutes of that and looking at my calendar. So if I have an audition, then I might be prepping for that, to shoot that day, or maybe I'm helping out a friend who's doing an audition. I also practice martial arts, so mornings when the kids are out, I also go and do that. So that's really what my mornings are like. And then, I might pick up my kids to bring them home for a nap, or, I mean, between the hours of like 4 and 7 are generally like also dinner and bedtime and that sort of thing. Then there's like an hour of cleanup. They don't tell you how much cleaning up happens when you have kids. Just be aware. Like the amount of cleaning up is way more than I anticipated. So
I can imagine.
you've been forewarned.
Well, that's amazing, because especially that you're involved in so much between the arts and STEM. With that being said, I was wondering, what has been your favorite project so far, whether it be any TV or film related projects or engineering?
Let's see. Well, there are so many. I once heard a casting director when she was asked, like, what's your favorite kind of thing to work on? And she's like, whatever I'm working on right now. She's like, I just love whatever I'm doing right this second. And I just love that attitude. And I think from all projects, there are cool, fun things, whether I'm on set shooting something. There's always like a great, I think, story, or it's always fun to be doing that. Basically, when you're filming something, it's like the day of a big event. You've planned all of these things and finally everything is coming together. Maybe you have like a speaker coming, or if someone's getting married, then it's like, or the birthday girl or birthday boy is like finally arriving, and you've got the outfits and all that stuff, and everything finally comes together for that moment, and it's just really exciting and fun. And when you're acting, I mean, really, you show up and someone dresses you, someone prepares the way that you look, and you just get ready to say your words that you've learned and stand where they need you to stand and stuff like that. But it's fun. And engineering wise, I think my favorite assignment, I worked for a pharmaceutical company right out of college, and they had a rotation program. So it was like 6 months per engineering assignment. And my favorite one was working on a bottling line for like a nutritional drink and putting in certain pieces of equipment. Like there was the coder that put in the like expiration date on the bottom that like sprayed it on there, or laser printed it on there, and that was just cool to see the whole line come together. And by the end of the project, my pieces of equipment were working with all the other ones, and you could just see all the bottles like running super fast through. So that was also really cool. And of course, Broadway was like
Yeah.
awesome. Just the sound of 900 people or something laughing at something that you've said is like the very cool feeling that I won't forget anytime soon. So,
Yeah. And I'm curious to know, like, how did you go from engineering to acting? Like, what has this
yeah.
been like? Because I know I can speak for myself at Duke. Not it's not as many people who go into the arts professionally. So I was curious to know your journey. Um,
Sure. So I got this. I got an engineering degree, and I started out that EE track is very conducive towards the pre med track as well, and so that's what I was doing for a while. But like, I just was not very interested or good at the like the organic chemistry almost broke me, and I just was not able to or not wanting to like put in the work. So I just kind of, eked by, I guess, for Duke standards. And when it came time to like take the MCATs, I had the summer to prepare and I had signed up and I just like didn't do it. And so it was like the week before the test and I like went to my parents like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take this test. I haven't prepared or anything. And they actually were like, okay, you don't have to do it. That's fine. They were like very chill about it. And I was like, what? I thought you wanted me to be a doctor. And they were like, well, you just seemed like you didn't really know what you wanted to do. So we thought we would encourage you in that direction, but like, you don't have to do that, And I was like, why have I been pushing so hard to do this thing that I'm not actually that interested in? And there were like so many more students who like really were very interested and they were like upset that they were still only in the top 25% even though they had like a 4.0 GPA, but they were like, but I didn't have enough A pluses. And I was like, I cannot with this. I just do not have the energy to be worried about this sort of thing. So I guess it's good that I didn't try and go to medical school for several years. Sorry, but you asked about, so I did get this job, which I thought was like really cool in the pharmaceutical. I had done an internship at this company and then got this engineering program job. And I thought it was cool because you get to do different assignments, for 2 years and see the different areas of the company. So I did like facilities engineering, I did R&D engineering, and then the manufacturing side. And then what was the last one? Oh, it was like validation or like a packaging, basically. And I got to be in California and Arizona, and then 2 assignments were in Chicago. And so that was just like cool to see different things. But even there, I didn't feel like I loved it as much as the other people in the program. Like, I think we were all sort of being not groomed, but, we're networking, and it's like this program that you can meet a lot of people and make contacts and like kind of work your way up in like management. And I just like did not want the same things that they did. They were like, I'm going to have a certain class Mercedes by this time and a townhouse in the suburbs. And like, I was like, I don't need any of those things. And I just started to find myself like thinking about what else I could be doing with my time besides when I was at work, when I should have been working or just focused on that. And I had to take a good hard look at, if I were to go back to school, what would I study and learn? Which is a very terrifying feeling once you've spent all that money and all that time on a degree that you theoretically, should have been your first choice or whatever. And I thought back to high school when I did acting and sang in choir and stuff, and I was like, I think I would learn that, I would just go and study acting, even though I didn't really think that was like a career, when I was at Duke or even growing up. It just wasn't like a thing. We didn't know any actors. We didn't know anybody in the entertainment industry, period. And even though I took an acting class at Duke, it was definitely like, this is an elective. This is like fun. And we get to like, I don't know, roll around on the floor or stretch for 45 minutes in the morning. So I just took a class, while I was working. And on the weekend, I would drive down to Chicago and take this class. And just every step of the way, people were like, yeah, you can do it. And I looked into like, okay, what do you need to be an actor? Well, you need a headshot, you need a picture, and you need a resume. And I was like, well, I can definitely put together a resume where the columns all line up. You will be surprised by how many people cannot do that. But I was like, I can do that. I can take a picture and do that. And I think actually being in the professional world helped me get some of those first jobs going out on auditions for like industrial, like corporate videos, because that's who the audience is like a person in a suit being like, at our company, we do this. And like, I think I even did one it was like 4 pharmaceutical sales reps. And I was like the good rep who was like good at talking to the doctors and like being friends with the nurses and like remembering who is who versus like the bad actor rep who like never remembered anybody and like didn't bring lunch. And so I was like, this is very meta right now to be playing this person to be acting as this while having that degree. So I think that knowing what that world was made it easier for me to like be that person. I was like, we just say words. Nothing is like too terribly important, or you have to sound like you know what you're talking about, but it doesn't have to be some like deep emotional thing.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned this idea of like going back to like your childlike interests and passions to really see like what you want to do. Because so often, like, when we get older, we're just going by like, I guess, what we see around us or what society thinks is like, great or professional. But I found myself, even as I'm a sophomore right now, trying to just go back to what I'm really passionate about and interested in and just do that, because that's what I'm probably going to wind up doing in the future.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if this is still true, but I feel like when I was in school, I think Duke attracts a lot of students that are good at many different things. Mm-hmm. So there was like a joke that like everybody graduates with like 3 things, like 2 majors and a minor, or like or like a major, a minor, and like a certificate in education or whatever. And
yeah.
Yeah, or like there's selective houses, but then they like also played sports, and like you could be an engineer that also is like a photographer, and like all this well-rounded students, right? And I think sometimes it's in those other things that either it makes for a very good complementary outlet for your whatever your main focus is, or sometimes can like become the thing that kind of takes off. So yeah, and it's okay. I find that to indulge in those things that make you happy. Sometimes it's even just the things that help to clear your mind, that you're like, why am I spending time on this? Like, for instance, I find personally that like fixing things that are broken like makes me feel better. Maybe that's the engineer in me that's like still trying to come out. But instead of just like chucking it and buying a new thing, I'm like, how can I fix this? How do I sew this back together? Well, like, what pieces do I need? And even though some people might say like, that's such a waste of time, like there's something about it that helps me in my brain and helps me to feel like, I did something. Yeah. Especially in an industry that's so where so much is out of my control. Like I just wait for auditions to come. I don't write anything that, I don't make sure that something is made. I don't get it to say what is going to be aired. I just, if they have a part, I show up and say the words, and I might be the right fit. But I think it's and like you never know what could potentially be a source of income or a source of like great happiness. For instance, I know someone who writes ghost writes romance novels, and you can make a lot of money doing that. And it's very sort of formulaic, and
Oh, wow, I didn't know
you
that.
don't have to have you sell it on Amazon, and they only sell for like $2 or $3 or whatever. But people read them very quickly, so then they're like, "What's the next one?" So you never know like what the income stream could be. And it's like, oh yeah, sure, let's write 4 novels or a novel a month and make, I don't know, I think she was bringing in like $20,000 a book or something like that. So like, not terrible. I mean, allows you to do other things, right?
Yeah, and when you talk about this idea of like in acting, like a lot of the auditions or what comes to fruition for viewers, it's not in like your control. I was
Right.
curious to know, like with engineering, like a lot of it was in your control. Like how are you able to now navigate that space where it's just like, hey, like you know,
Sure.
I audition and we'll see what it is.
Um, it is hard. It's I think people call it like the freelancer's dilemma, or to go from something that's structured to not can be really difficult. And I mean, to go from being a student where you have certain classes and places you need to be, to like all of a sudden not, and getting to like plan your whole day. And at first you think like, oh, this is great, I can do whatever I want, but then time slips away very easily and quickly when you don't have something to be at, or commitments to fulfill. So it's a blessing and and also a challenge to overcome that. And I think finding the structure that works for you and then like committing to that is important. In the industry I'm in, someone once said like being like 90% of it is just showing up and putting in the work. Like you have to just do the work, because a lot of people come to LA or they want to be actors and they're like, someone will discover me, and they go about their serving jobs or whatever position that they're in, assuming that someone will be like, you have a great face, and like, I love your voice, and like, why don't you be in my movie? And that's just not how it works. So he's like, if you work hard, you're already doing better than like 90%, and if you have any talent at all, you're like already at 95. So I think being at Duke showed me that putting in the work and showing up and being able to talk to people and being so well rounded is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd done like a little bit more of that when I was at Duke, instead of being just so siloed into my particular areas, But I get it too, because schoolwork is intense.
And it's easy to Duke for like a lot of the majors and everything. It's very structured. Everything is laid out for you, rather than you being able to actually think about, oh, what do I want to do? Is there something else that like interests me? But sometimes you just get so caught up into like the structure of everything, and then
Yeah.
once you finish working hard, you're like, I'm tired. I'm done.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was I had to like get new shoes, and that was sort of what like sealed it for me. As it was like an aha moment being in engineering, and I was like, I need to find some like sensible shoes that I can like go out onto the floor or like crawl around through like mechanical spaces, but they have to be comfortable and like this kind of color and like go with a certain number of outfits. And I was like, I hate these shoes. I was like, this is not what I want to be doing with my life. Like, I don't want to wear these. And I was like, maybe I'm just not in the right job, which is such a stressful, or can be such a scary thing to think, to realize. If I put all this energy into something that I don't want to do, and if I have to get out, how much more work and how much more is it going to cost? But I was very fortunate. I'll just let me try and quickly go into how I went into acting more professionally. I took that class, and again, like the more people I met in the industry, the people teaching the classes, casting directors, other actors that were like, yeah, let me refer you to my agent, and them being like, yeah, you definitely, like, we can sell this face, right? Or we need more of your type. So getting that encouragement, I was like, all right, let's just try. And so while doing my engineering job, I was moonlighting as an actor and just taking classes doing that. And I remember even in California, doing my packaging job, there was another actress I was taking a class with, and she was like, well, and ironically, she like was also a computer science major and like worked for Apple or something like that and wanted to be an actress. And she's like, well, how many auditions are you going on every week? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, I try to go on one every week just to get the practice. And this is like combing Craigslist we're talking about here. Looking for like, oh, I'm going to do fit modeling. I'm going to do anything that could possibly relate to experience or getting the experience of like interviewing, which is basically what auditioning is like doing a whole like 60 interviews a year, or meeting people all the time to be like, hey, am I a good fit for your thing? And then working for one day and then being like, okay, so what's next? And so she really challenged me to put in that work of showing up and deciding like, okay, if this is something that I want to do, like I have to put out the effort. And if you want to be an actor, that's a great way to start. Student films, those weekend film challenges. I had one friend say that auditioning for student films is like great experience because they're often, the people auditioning you are very new, and so it can be very awkward. And if you can overcome that and still do the work that you set out to do, that's like a really great experience, and will make you feel more comfortable in when the bigger auditions come, which pay you union roles.
Yeah, that leads me right into like the question I was going to ask about like, what would you tell your younger self at Duke, or what's something that you, I don't know, advice you give to any of us?
Yeah. For me specifically at Duke, I think I would have just said like, just talk to people, not necessarily about whatever it is that they're studying or they think they want to do. I mean, if they love something in particular, like that's great, and they know that like I'm going to be this, like that's fantastic. But I just wish I'd gotten to know people and teachers as human beings as opposed to educators, because you can always learn more knowledge, but your teachers and the people at school are so much more than that, and even their life stories and stuff, or their family history and or family dynamics and stuff is all interesting, and learning about what they do or where they've been, and just like I just wish I'd like talked to more people or not been so shy, not felt like I have to bring something to this conversation as opposed to just soaking it up and enjoying what other people had to say. And I would also say that drive to be well-rounded or to like do all of the things that I feel like happens at Duke, and maybe a lot of college campuses, really helped me because it allowed me to not feel, it encouraged me to try to do the acting while working at a full-time engineering job. And it got to the point where I had taken enough classes, I had gotten representation, and I was like, I'm gonna do a play. And it had been years since I'd been on stage, but I auditioned for a community theater musical, and I got the lead part. They were like, we're gonna cast you as Cinderella, and I was like, what? Which was great, but there were like no understudies or anything. And that play or that musical led me to making the switch and putting acting on top. And what happened was my engineering work, I was working on a project in Illinois, so it would have been perfect if they just let me do that. But the team, it was a validation team, which means like they're like the people that come in at the end and like check to make sure everything is there. We're the checker people with the reports and making sure everything is in its place. And they wanted to send me and another woman to California to do a project out there. And I was like, oh, I'm in this play, or I don't even think I said that, but I was like, I have commitments here, like I can't leave. And I think she had just enrolled in the MBA program at University of Chicago, and she was like, I am not letting go of that, to go to California. Like I have a perfectly great project here. And for whatever reason, they were like, we need to make an example out of you two. And so they gave me it's like my boss's boss called me in and was like, if you're really sure that you aren't going to go, here's your 90 days like termination notice. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? I was very surprised. And man, that guy, he was like, have you talked to your parents about this? And I was like, what? Just because I still live with my parents, like, doesn't mean that I need their permission or whatever. I don't know what it was, which I happily lived at home. Yeah, he just was like, you should do what we want you to do. And I was like, no, I've already committed to this thing. And so I signed the document saying that I understood that this was I had 90 days to find a new position, or that I would be, let go or whatever. And during that time, my immediate boss, my manager, mm-hmm. happened to, let me think about how this worked. Oh, our department hires a lot of contractors because, as you can imagine, doing this kind of validation work is project oriented. And so sometimes you need just one-off contractors to come in. And I'd met someone that did that kind of work, and he was sort of in business for himself. It was like just him. And so I was like, hey, like, I'm going to be a freelancer soon. Like, can we go out to lunch and like talk about if I can, what it is that you do and stuff like that. And as we were leaving, my immediate manager was like, hey, where are you guys going? And we were like, oh, we're going to lunch. He was like, I'll come with you. And I was like, oh, okay. But when he found out that that's what, I was planning to do, he was like, oh, well then that's great. I can just hire you back as a contractor to this project. And it ended up working out really great that I like left. I like took the rest of my vacation, and then he hired me back on as a contractor through this other company on the exact same project, which is so crazy. And so I was like able to finish it, and I was paid way more, didn't get like benefits anymore, right? And able to like come and go as I pleased, and so was able to have that stability. That was like my side hustle, like as an actor. And so that supported me doing the acting stuff on top. So I think Duke and doing all of the activities, I sang in an a cappella group, I was in a selective house and did the engineering thing, and doing all of those things helped to prepare me to do all of the things, or put in the hard work to sort of survive more comfortably, I guess, as an actor, especially in those beginning days when they were paying like maybe $25 a show.
That's the thing, because like most people say that, like, you're gambling going into entertainment, film industry, because oftentimes when you just start off, you're not going to get paid well. But it's a lot of people's dreams, and then you see the people who do succeed and how much they're getting paid, and it's just like well beyond conception.
Yeah, and I've met other like writers and stuff. Have you guys had like Keely McDonald come in? She's a writer. I think she wrote was like writing for like the Avatar, the new one coming out, the new show, or the live action version. I can send you her information later, because she's also great, and she's like, she was definitely like not getting paid very much to be a writer's assistant, but like going home and then working on her own stuff, which is like exhausting, let's be honest. But if you want, if that's what you want, you have to like go get it.
Yeah.
But also, if you somehow have like a cushion, a financial cushion, then like use it without shame. I say if you have a support system, if you can tolerate living at home or under, less than like cool circumstances, like I say, do it. I don't know. Do what is best for you to make your dreams happen.
Exactly. Well, now I think it's time to pivot so we can open up this Q&A to everyone else. So if you have a question, just feel free to unmute yourself, and I'm sure Christine will love to answer.
Hi, Christine. I'm from Fuqua. I'm Gemba. I actually live in DC, but long story short, working in tech, but I'm also a talent manager, 5 clients, 3 in SAG. So the question I wanted to ask you is some of my clients are not directly actors, but trying to transition, for example, from dance or pro wrestling or stunt. And so they all ask me the same question of like, who is like the acting teacher to teach? And so I already gone through one person, Leslie Kahn, but I get the feeling that she kind of like upsells all the time after each class. So my question to you is like, when it comes to like the acting training, like how much acting training do you need? And like, do you recommend like keep going to classes, keep going to the same ones, or should they like diversify, go to different coaches?
Sure. Yeah, this is so Leslie Kahn. It's so interesting. This is like all the inside information, guys. Leslie Kahn is a very famous comedy teacher, but her studio, I have heard from casting directors say, I can tell who's been to Leslie Kahn because they come in and they all do the exact same performance. So it's a good performance, but it can be very, and she also just like turns some people on and like turns some people off. I think she plays favorites. It's crazy, this acting world. I mean, the gurus are, there can be like that guru mentality. So I'm happy to send you like a list of people that I like. I really love the Actors Comedy Studio. But again, they might not be for everyone. I'll put my email like in the chat if you guys have like specific questions like this, like where should I get pictures, or like can you send me good examples of headshots that look professional. Let me spell my name right. Then you can just email me those questions. But I like the Actors Comedy Studio. Gunnar actually helped. He's one of the co-founders. He helped me to book this comedy with Awkwafina and Sandra Oh. And he just like talks to you like a real person and like actually laughs. And I was like, do you know how unusual that is in LA? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's great. To be genuine is like a thing. It's like a unique thing. But for people who are, I would say, I think taking classes is a really good step, because in the end, they're going to be looking at your face, and it's about learning how to pretend and put yourself to live in like an imaginary circumstance, which is like very strange, a very strange thing to do, especially when it's like an audition and you're reading with somebody on Zoom and you have to like pretend that you're, what was the last audition I did? I was playing, it was for, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to say this. Okay, maybe we'll cut this out later. It's for a Western coming out, and it's like in the 1800s, and I'm playing like auditioning for a woman who like came over to San Francisco and like worked in a brothel or whatever. And so it's just very different from like what we do generally and the way that we talk, and trying to act in English and Chinese with an acting partner who doesn't speak Chinese, and there's a lot there. So I think getting that on-camera acting is great. It's like some people are really good at taking photos, and a professional model, a photographer once said, a professional model like doesn't get tired after 10 minutes. You know, the rest of us were like, God, are you done yet? Like, did you get the picture or not? Like, because I can't, you know, the smiles start to look like after 10 minutes. And so a professional model apparently does not look tired after 10 minutes. As an actor too, the more practice you get, the better that they'll get. And maybe we can chat afterwards too about like, what does a booking tape look like? You know, or like, I mean, and this is something that like actors want to know too. Anytime somebody books something, I'm like, can I see your audition tape? Like, what is it about your tape that made it stand out? Yeah. Anybody here want to be an actor? Is that just curious? Or yeah, for sure. In the entertainment industry, or want to be a model or an influencer or any of that kind of stuff? There's like a whole science to it.
I know personally I want to be in the entertainment industry, but more in regards to media and speaking. I don't know, I see myself, my dream has always been to have like a talk show.
Yes.
So I see myself as like, I don't know, maybe an interviewer, I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I see myself.
Yeah. My friend, Lisa Hope King, let me put her in there. She actually she was in finance in New York, and she came to see Chinglish, and she's also Chinese, and was just like, I've never seen a cast of mostly Chinese people on stage and speaking in 40% of the play was like in Chinese, and she was like, it was just incredible. And she like hung out outside of the door afterwards, and I was like, oh, why don't you like come have a drink with us? We're going next door. There are some perks to being an actor, guys. And she came, and I was just telling her, about my transition from engineering to acting. And I was like, it's totally possible. You just might have to do both things at the same time for a little while.
Yeah.
And like put in that extra work. But she was like, really? Is it possible? She was doing like who knows how many hours she's putting in doing like finance stuff and reports and research. But she's now a journalist and like flies around the country and the world getting paid to interview people and do segments and stuff like that. And she's also just like great at, I don't know, interviewing. So I'll send you some of her stuff, and if you wanted to connect with her, I'm sure she would be cool, because she's also just like lovely. And I think it's like following this passion, and even doing these events and hosting these events are great practice then for you.
I know, that's what I see it as. It's just practice, and I like doing it. I like reaching out to people and trying to get interesting conversations going.
Yeah, yay.
But I won't take up any much more of your this time. Does anybody have any more questions they would like to ask Christine?
I guess I did have a thought. How do I put it? I sat in on it's about like being yourself and exploring what that is, because I think for a lot of us growing up, we spend a lot of time trying to fit into other people's expectations, and even socially, what's acceptable and what's not. And right now, at least in entertainment, the thing that people are craving most is authenticity. Yeah. And the thing that makes only you be, like we have to have this person, they're just that good, so allowing yourself to bring all of yourself to things. I think too, like as a woman of color, especially like going into the engineering school, where sometimes I'm like the only girl in the class, to be able to say like, that's fine, and I'm gonna bring all of myself and not try to fit into what other people say is something to think about, and think about for yourself, like what areas in which do I do that, and can I bring more of myself, because that's what people are looking for. Like I heard a talk with a writer who wrote on the first season of The Americans, which is about this Russian spy couple that sets up in the US. and they're in arranged marriage, and so it's about their relationship. There's like also spy stuff, but that just becomes like work, and it's about their relationship. And she said she got it because her parents are, I think they're like Iranian, and her father had helped the US government, and then so they had to like leave very quickly and like relocate to Texas. And so she had written a pilot about two people that were in an arranged marriage, and that's what like kind of got her this job and why she was in that writer's room and the perspective that she brought. And I asked her, like, how is it to now have that people want to see what your culture is like, what does it mean to be you, or to go from being in one country and then to transfer to like Smallsville, Texas or whatever. And she was like, it's actually crazy because I've spent almost my entire life trying to hide and trying to fit in to whatever the American, whatever is considered American, and it's like, now you want me to be myself, or now you want me to bring all of my culture and stuff. So, yeah, just go ahead and start practicing being your full self now, because that's what people want to see.
Advice, because when I think of that statement, I think of influencer, TikToker, actress, all the above, Tabitha Brown, and what she's doing right now. And even with her, like, she has like a cookbook tour going on right now, and the way that she kind of, I guess everybody kind of saw she like rose to fame overnight, but really it took like 20 plus years, and how they see her, and a lot of people admire her, but it's just really because she's just being her authentic self, and especially in such a space that a lot of people are, I guess, per se. She says,
yeah, no, for sure. It's like, what is that unique perspective? And it could take a long time to hone it. And they say 10 years or 10,000 hours or whatever, and that's not that different for acting. And I know it feels like, oh, but I have to be young when I break through or whatever, and it's just going to take as long as it's going to take. And you just never know what project is going to be the one that like puts you over the top. And so you want to have people that believe in you, like David believes in his clients. And if you are going to go into a space that like you're largely doing the work independently, like being an actor or putting out content, try to find like-minded people that you can at least share and like, commiserate with about all of the downtime in between. Like, it's helpful when an actor says like, I know the money is there, I just never know when it's coming or where it's going to come from, but there is definitely a living to be made. It's just, if you can't stand the financial insecurity, then find another hobby that can pay, even if you don't like it that much. If you like it enough to at least pay the bills, like, that's something. You don't have to feel bad about that. It's not selling out or anything to like be able to treat yourself to lunch and stuff.
Exactly.
So you don't want to burn out on. Yeah, you don't want to burn out because it takes a toll financially. I don't know. What do you guys? I'm curious to know like who else you've had come in, and what you guys are looking to learn, and what kind of questions you guys might have, or what things that you want to do, what big dreams, or even just like a seed of an idea. What are you guys working on?
Feel free to unmute yourself.
All right. I guess I can share something. So first I want to apologize for being late. On the Bo Weekly this week, it said it was from 6 to 7. So it was pushed back 30 minutes, and I'm super sad. I've had this in my calendar for like ever. But I'm sorry I missed the first 30 minutes. So I hope I don't like ask you to repeat something, but I'm originally from Florida, and when I was 14, I actually had this incredible opportunity to move to New York City, and I trained professionally at Ballet Academy for my high school experience. And instead, I had opportunities to go pro and I ended up turning them down to come to Duke. So I was wondering if you experienced like anything similar in terms of like going to college or pursuing it like when you were younger, how that worked. And, I do have thoughts like maybe I came to Duke to pursue a career like not in ballet anymore, but sometimes the thought crosses my mind of whether I like should maybe still consider it for after.
Sure. Yeah, so I started, I mean, I think I've always been a kid who like made up songs and dances and like at family gatherings or like, gatherings with like a whole bunch of other kids. I'd be like, let's put on a circus show and like would make people be different things. So I think that's always been kind of part of my DNA, but I started acting like in, I think, middle school, and then I started singing in a choir, and theater was kind of my main sport in high school. We did like a musical and then 2 plays every year. So that was like kind of what took up my after school time. I just never thought of it as a possible career. And I was saying that like, my family didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't know anyone in entertainment. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and there just like isn't as much going on there. So it was only after when I was like working professionally and just feeling slightly dissatisfied all the time that I was like, maybe this was like not the right choice, and I should like think about what would make me happy and to go back and study and learn and like put in the work all over again. And I mean, if you wanted to take, I'm sure they can arrange for like a gap year or like if you wanted to like go back and study or like even a summer program, I say like do it. I wish I'd gone abroad when I was at Duke, even like for a summer, just to like experience the world before all responsibilities are handed over to you. And I think my freshman year there was a guy who like took a gap year before coming to Duke. He just deferred for a year. So if that's something that's like in your heart, and I know, then I say like, look into it, and then see if that is something. Explore all options. I feel like that's something that Duke students are good at, is like research or looking into things and like ask people what's possible, even if nobody else is doing it. Like people, especially your university, like they want you to succeed and be like famous and an expert in your area. So like if you come back famous, they're going to be happy about that. So don't worry about asking for something that's like off menu, you know? Yeah, and I wish I'd taken advantage of those opportunities and those resources a little bit more when I was at school. I think I was kind of caught up in like, well, I just have to do what I need to, to like survive. But like, there's so many people that want to help you and want to further your career and like see you be successful. So, yeah, if there's someone that you want to like pick their brain or just tell them your situation, like, I don't know anything, what do I need to do? Like, that's totally fine. That's what I'd say. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, I also have my email in there if you're like later, like I was too shy to ask, but I am interested in being an actor. Tell me more, or a writer, or there's so many jobs. There's so many. You can also work for a company in the entertainment industry. There can be like something with a salary and health benefits and stuff. It doesn't have to be all kind of freelance work as well. So there are different options. Yeah.
Thank you so much, though.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time and you being able to talk with us, and then also just share, your dreams and passions. Thank you for dreaming and, discussing your interests, because I know it's probably inspired a lot of people here who typically may not go on that path, but, seeing you do it and be successful shows it can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope it can be somewhat. I mean, think of it this way: you're going to put in the work
Mhm.
one way or another, so it might as well be in something that you feel at least satisfied and excited about some of the time, even if there is grunt work. And
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, yeah. And also finding that community of like people that you can ask to help you with difficult things. I mean, honestly, sometimes I'll like tape an audition and I'm like, I cannot decide between these two takes. And literally, I outsource it. I will text it to my friends and be like, hey, what do you think between these two takes? And it's so much easier to do someone else's work. You know, it's like easier to write somebody else's bio than like your own. You're like, okay, just tell me like where are you from, what are the highlights, and then you like type it up and you're like, here's your bio, and they're like, oh, I've been thinking about this for like 3 days or whatever. It's way easier to have someone else like take a look at
Yeah.
that. So like use each other.
That's the help.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. I know school teaches you that you cannot collaborate because that's cheating, but in the real world, like that's all people do is collaborate and get other people to do stuff for you. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all for tonight.
All right.
So
Thank you
that's
guys so
great.
much. Thanks for all these messages.
Yes, thank you. And I'll be following up with you shortly. And if anybody wants to ask Christine questions or anything, she put her email in the chat. So
Yeah, feel free. And yeah, thanks for all these messages, guys.
all right. Thank you so much.
Bye.